Hello and welcome back to the Fantasy Take TV podcast to review round 18. We've got just me and JD here this week doing sort of the sub in, sub out at the moment. I was off last week, back this week. George is not with us tonight, but JD, we've got a few things to talk about. Not too much, but we thought we'd add in some extras here. So, MVP and Fold, of course. We'll talk about how we went, how George went as well. Some injuries, some news we'll quickly speak about. And we're going to talk about, JD had an idea of the most Mickey Mouse moments of 2023 so far. He's got maybe 5 or 6, I think, and I don't know them, so we'll talk about them. Things like that happen every year, and we'll see what JD's got this year. We all know too well one of ours last year, don't we? How are you, mate? How you going?
Hey, the person will not be spoken about. I'm going all right, thanks. It's Look, it's a tricky part of the year for making content, I will say, because we're at that part where for Supercoach, our trades are pretty much exhausted and we're on that run home those last 5 or 6 weeks. So obviously try and inject a few fun things in the Mickey Mouse moments for those that don't know. And for those that don't hear Mickey Mouse often, it's like our Discord language or speech. It's the really like unlucky stuff, but like dumb unlucky stuff, like not predictable, not the range of outcomes, just like that's like so like unfair that thing happened. And so when we started first using Mickey Mouse was like the 2020 COVID season where just everything was BS. You couldn't really plan. It was all changing week to week. I think, like week 2 or 3, I copped a donut because of the Essendon Melbourne game getting cancelled. Yeah. And that's the first time I think I'd ever copped, and I haven't copped one since, like a donut in this game. So, that's what we mean. Like this Mickey Mouse, like just this unfortunate stuff I had can't affect. So we're going to go through the top 5 of those, which is pretty fun. I'm sure I will have missed some. And so for listeners, please drop us comments on YouTube or hit us up in Discord with Mickey Mouse moments we may have missed. But yeah, that'll be fun to go through. And then I guess the other thing that teams are wondering about in these last 6 weeks is where I can finish up from here and trying to solidify that good finish. So for me, and I'll go through my positioning and rank and round review all that in a minute, but I'm trying to get to top 100. Many are trying to get to top 1,000. And one of the things I went through today was looking at where I was last year, because I think post buys last year I was 17K. I finished at 1.8K. And in the last 6 rounds, I went from something like outside or around 6,000 into 1.8K. And I have a pretty strong belief that if you're in the 3 to 4K mark and you've got a good team, you've got trades, and the run home can be good for you. And carnage weeks like this can be good for you too. So I think that is the part that is interesting for those, just trying to solidify and get those good finishes. But yeah, that's a long intro. Enno, how about we do something we never do, which is let's start with you. How was your week? How did you score? Who was your MVP and fault and all that good stuff? Oh, actually, this is probably the worst week to do it.
Very reluctant. Oh my God. Reluctant. Oh, no, last week was bad too. When I wasn't here last week, it was just as bad.
You're like, sweet, I dodged the bullet, and then this round happened.
Yeah, I kind of knew. I said on my video, I've known 2 months. My team's pretty much done in my position because just some bad trades, but also bad luck with sort of the Mills and Took back-to-back. Captains haven't been good all year. This week, then, it's just been carnage on carnage. Obviously, Sarong was out. A lot of people cop that, although not a lot. Like, what's he, 50%, I think? So, being in part of that group was bad. Tom Green, of course, most own. Held on to Sicily all this time. Dunkley still out. And, for Sis to get tagged by Eddie Ford first, but then to see Jack Zeeble get subbed on and man him up, just sort of summed up the year. Like, the fact that I just haven't owned Zeeble, then, he turns into a, bad pick. People trade him out. He's, out of the team, subs in and tags the guy I've held for 3 weeks, as a primo and drops to 58. That just really just summed it up. So 2,308 I scored, which, wasn't above par. It was just below, I think, went down another 200 spots. So I've gone from about 800 to 1.8 in about 3 weeks. So top 1K finish, I think, is slipping away. And I did use my last 2 trades because, I was copping a donut. Sort of all I thought I was anyway until Marriage was in. So he saved me from copping one. And that was with using my 2 trades on DC and Tom Green. So it's like, I've already got Windhager covering for dunks. DC Green to me is a trade. And then it was just, do I hold DC and see what happens? But I'm not too sure he'll be back this way. I mean, we'll see. But it's a bad back injury. And look, I just used my last trade. I'm like, you know what? My season's done. Jack Steele in for 477K after, not slagging on him, but not really liking him as a pick. But I've been confident or grown in confidence. I'm sure a few people have. over the last couple of weeks. So he was all right. And it just sort of allowed me to afford like a decent forward as opposed to a bad one. So I could have got Cogs in at 520, but I went for Shea Bolton at 5. I think he was the same, 521 or something. So he was good. He could have gone a bit bigger. Shea's kicked like 2 goals 4 or something, but that's always what he does. So no trades left. No ruck cover now as well, which is nice. No English. So yeah,
Lovely.
That's
Lots
me
of good
done, mate.
decisions.
That's me done.
Yep.
Let's move on. Let's go to a better team in yours.
Well, how about we do the MVP and Fault, and then I'll jump in.
MVP. Who's? I guess someone that's not too highly owned. Andy B, although he actually is. So he's been actually a really good trade in, but I actually think he might be more highly owned than I think. Maybe Jack Steele, 105, bringing him in and going all right. Probably him or Shea. They both went 105 as trade-ins. Not smashing it out of the park, but where my team sits right now, that's an MVP. And then Fault, probably Sinclair. Him or Briggs.
Yep.
Briggs is not great, but I can't blame him for not getting within 100 points of English, but if you'd hope he would. But Sinclair 67 isn't too great. So
no, that was a game where he had 0 contested touches, something like 23 or something touches and 0 contested. So for someone that was spending time in the midfield, not good enough. So agree with you on the -3 there. I'll pick someone else though. So for my plus, or actually I'll start with how my team went. So 23-8-9, which was all right, moving up 4 spots to 153 overall. Melican and Fletcher were the 2 that I had to use to cover. So Fletcher, really good with the 80, would have been up there in contention for my +3 for the week. And Melican, who's been amazing cover for me, apart from 2 of the weeks where I've needed him. So he had a 21 in the buys where they destroyed North or West Coast, something like that. The ball just wasn't in their end. And then the 26 this week doing his hamstring, and he's out for 3 to 4 weeks. We'll go through injuries in a second. And look, that won't affect many people, but that hurts me because that was my defensive cover for the rest of the year. Yeah. So my MVP for the week, I'll give to, and it's, look, don't want to rub it in, but Timmy English, the 173, vice captain, one of the better captain scores you'll get for the year. So love that. And as someone that doesn't own Briggs, I want English to be punishing Briggs as much as possible. So not only getting the 100-point advantage, but getting the vice captaincy.
I mean,
huge.
He's only 77%, JD. We sort of noticed that a couple of weeks ago.
Still like 20% that own him or something like that in the top 1K. And we will talk about potential Briggs options this week because I know a few with trades will be thinking about, should I be jumping off now? And then I guess I'll give my fault to... I'm going to give it to Caleb Daniel. 73 is definitely not the worst score. Like, Neil 75, Merritt 69, Marshall 58, lots of bad scores. But trading in Daniel this week on the back of all the injury news was annoying for 2 reasons. Because 1, I traded him in before we found out about Green. And if I'd known about Green and that was who I was trading rather than DC, I would have swapped to someone else and got a better trade-in target. So that's annoying. And then secondly, he gave me his worst score of the year. So that's pretty frustrating. You always want that sugar hit when you get these guys in. So to have him drop to 73 was no bueno. So yeah, he gets my -3. And then just quickly on George, he scored a 2370. So that puts him to 1,300 overall now. So he's still in a chance for a top 1K finish as well. Just having a quick look through his team. Look, he had the English VC. So give him...
Yeah,
oh, actually, no, wait.
Did him or Will Day? Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
he did.
Yeah.
Maybe Will Day, 120.
Yeah, Will Day's a great shout out for someone that were wondering, can he be kept there? And he's now put up 2 really good scores in the last 3 weeks, obviously with a stinker in the middle. And then do you see a fault for Giordano?
I mean, I can only imagine he would say Harry Himmelberg, but he said him every week, I think.
Yeah.
I said Sinclair, mate. It'd be harsh to give it to Hobbs or something, but
Merritt's the 69 in his 200.
Maybe a Keys. I mean, he actually scored worse this week, right, with full-time mid-roll than he did the week before without it. So maybe him. But I think George said he was battling some little injury, right? So,
oh man, that's a bit of.
I think George would say Himmelberg. I'll be honest. But yeah.
Keys could have had an all right score as well, but that kick out of bounds in the dying minutes of that game where it was on the line.
I didn't see that.
Clanger. Yeah. So they were attacking on rebound. He gets the ball kind of just forward of halfway on the wing. They're all like bursting out. and he goes to kick it inside 50 to whichever small forwards kind of run out in the 45 to get it just near the boundary, and he just shanks it and goes straight out of bounds. GWS get it and rebound the other way and like kind of seal the game. So yeah, that was pretty bad.
Yikes. George
So that you know, with close game scaling, that's the difference between like he could have been in the 90s if it was a score assist, and instead he's like under 70. Yeah.
Yep. Cool. All right. Bit of news, Jody. I think we're just looking before we got on the injury list update. So, what sticks out, mate? What do we?
So despite talking about Keys potentially carrying something, he's not on the injury list, and neither is Laird, who had that AC joint concern at the end of the third quarter. Came out, had a really good fourth. He's not on the list, which is a good sign. Looking at Brisbane lines here, Dunkley is the one that people have been sweating on. That calf is listed as a test, and the news that we saw through the day is that he is expected to return this week, which is great news. On the Blues, obviously they had Mackay went down for the next 2 months, which is a pretty big deal for them. But probably the more relevant one for Supercoach is Chera, who is somewhat they've been talking about like hamstring tightness and awareness for him, and just given that they play West Coast this week, it does seem like a good opportunity for them to rest him. So I'd be worried about that, even though he's listed as a test. Going over to Collingwood, Darcy Cameron is listed as a test for his back after failing to get through the main training last week, or the captain's run last week that they needed him to get through, where he left on the cart in dramatic fashion. So a good sign that he is a test. I believe he got through training today from the reports that I saw, but they weren't, tier 1 sources, so take that with a grain of salt. Moving down to Essendon, nothing really big there. Dylan Shield actually has a foot injury that's a TBC. So I thought he was just dropped to the twos for us to keep the midfield mix we had, but he's actually gone. So for anyone that is holding a Hobbs or whatever, like a George, it's probably a good sign. Moving on to Freo, the big one here was Darcy, who did his ankle, and it has been confirmed, I believe, that he's going to miss this week, but there is no timeline on exactly when he'll return, but it sounds like it'll be short-term, only a couple of weeks rather than the rest of the year, with that being important of whether or not you actually look at someone like Luke Jackson as a pod option on the run home. And then Hayden Young, his ankle was 1 to 3 weeks last week, but it's actually now just a test, so he may play as soon as this week. Over to the Cats, there's nothing really of news here other than Jeremy Cameron got beat up, was fine, and he'll play. And then Gary Rowan's a test to come back. So I don't know, maybe that's a concern. And they continue to be dogs listing everything as short and medium term. Gold Coast, Weller saw the news that his ACL is done and he's having a second reconstruction, which is just, it's really sad news. It's not the most Supercoach relevant outside of with him and Joel Jeffrey both being injured. It does move Constable up the pecking order if they want to play him out of defence, but whether that comes to fruition or not seems unlikely given he was still to be an emergency. On the GWS Giants, Tom Green is listed as 2 weeks. So it was reported that he is likely to miss 3 weeks, and that is in keeping with what's on the injury list this week. Callahan's a test to come back, but really not too much news there. On the Hawks, I don't think there was anything really of relevance outside of Blanc. I don't know if it's like Blanc, like it's French or Blanc. It's probably just Blanc. It's probably just Blanc. I'm sure the commentary team just says Blanc. There's no way they're putting on French accents, right? But he has recovered from his concussion and is expected to return against Richmond, and that's good news for Sicily owners. Should mean that he doesn't have to play a lockdown role, although he may still have to worry about forward tags. Not that that's in Richmond's wheelhouse, but that's positive. On the D's side, Oliver's hamstring is still listed as 3 weeks away, but outside of that, nothing too relevant. For North, their injury list continues to grow and grow. You got like Logue that's now out for the season. You got Wardlaw who did his hamstring. Zerha did his ankle. So, and Archer who did his hamstring. So for anyone that picked up Cooper Harvey, really good signs. And I actually wonder if Drury is a chance to come back, just given how deep this injury list is now. That's one to keep an eye on. For Port Adelaide, the big news this week has been all about Zach Butters and whether or not he'll play. Scans apparently came back fine, and he will be right to play against Collingwood. We'll see exactly what happens. I just make sure that if he's in your side, you're putting him on whichever line has an emergency for you. So for me, I've got my cover in my midfield. I'm going to make sure he's in my midfield just in case that's a late out. For the Tigers, anyone of note? I think we found out Lynch was going to be out for the season.
Yeah, last week. I don't really see. I think everyone just owns Timmy T, and that's about it, besides me, who got Shea. So I don't think, maybe Banks owners or something. He looks okay, but might be on some people's bench. I don't know. He's got a roll down back, so
yeah.
I think, yeah, no new injuries or
Gibkiss
anything.
is still like 4 to 6 away, Short still 1 to 3. So
yeah, maybe Shorty hurts Banks, but anyway,
so
probably
still
not
got
too relevant.
hopefully a couple more weeks out of him. For Saints, Billings is a test to come back. I wonder if that affects Paris. Probably not, given how good
Yeah, he played well.
the new Jack was on the weekend. Oh, replace a Jack with a Jack. That's very St Kilda-like, isn't it? But yeah, I don't think anything else really of note there. On the Swans, already mentioned Melican's hamstring. It's listed as 3 to 4 weeks. Sheldrick is done for the season, and then Warner is a test for a calf this week. We're also waiting for news on whether or not Rampy is suspended, whether the tribunals upheld that or not. Maybe you can check as I finish off these last couple of teams, because that could be another forced change for them. On the West Coast side, nothing too big here. Gimby did his hammy. He's going to be out. Yo, I think, is a test to come back this week, but more likely to return the week after for anyone still holding him. Otherwise, probably not a ton to cover. And then on the Bulldog side, we had Bailey Smith, who was out with illness last week. We'll see what happens with him. Otherwise, only one I can really think of that's super relevant is Johansson, JJ, who's back in 1 to 2 weeks and may affect Dale, Richards, Caleb Daniel, even depending on what happens when he returns. So just keep an eye on that.
Cool. Big rundown and a lot there. No update on Rampy as yet. Still deliberating. Poor old Zeta, but that's his job. I guess the main one to talk about, I just said to you before we jumped on as well, is just Tom Green. So he's the most traded out player. Actually, Wardlaw is, but premium wise anyway. Because George also he got injured, didn't he, as well? Unfortunately,
yeah. Wardlaw did the hamstring, which
so
was really unfortunate
for
those that had him. A lot of people had him as cover and delivered a 30 and off he went. It's just like Melican for me, right? Exactly the same thing.
Yep. But yeah, he's the most traded out. So I guess what the question is, who do you trade him to now? I sort of would have said last week and did it myself. Trade him last week. He's out for 3 weeks. Get the extra premium score from last week. But maybe some people have, and clearly they haven't yet, and are now thinking about it. Which I still think 2 weeks you probably would if you had the trades. At this stage of the season. So who, JD? The most is actually Tuke Miller at this point in time. So I'm not sure if you watched that game, what your thoughts were there. I think he's played a bit more mid-time, but not
He did play more mid-time, like 64-5%. I want to say his time on ground went up a little bit and looked good. They're definitely trying to get more rotations in there with Flanders, which is not really previously what they've done. It was just the tight 3. So maybe that's the only knock there. I don't think their run home's particularly great, but I don't mind Miller as an option, just given that he's a bit of a pod. He's obviously cheap, and he's got the history of doing it in the past. So don't hate him as an option. Probably not my number one, but
yeah, I was just
he's the 518K.
He's the cheapest, right? So if you can't afford above, then he's probably the one. But there's also Jack Steele, which we'll talk about, who I got. If you don't have him, he's still below. So I guess we'll talk about who's below first, and he would be the other one. Would you like him more than Tuke? What would be your thoughts there? That's pretty close. Like Tuke, maybe has the highest ceiling, but I think Steele's turned a corner a bit.
Yeah, Steele's got the better fixture as well, I believe, like North and Hawks the next couple of weeks.
Oh, and they're all at Marvel, right?
They've got a big Marvel run, and they're playing finals. Not that Gold Coast aren't either. So I think you could go Steele. Maybe I prefer Miller still, just because of the number of things that's happened to Steele this year. Maybe I'd prefer to go down the Miller path. And once again, a bit more unique as well if you're looking for a differentiator on the run home. The two that I wanted to raise was LDU. And so I think that he looks like a really good option in the last couple of weeks. He's 551K, so he's like 1 or 2K more expensive than Tom Green.
Much. Yeah.
North's run home is also decent. They've got Saints, we've got West Coast the week after, and some other kind of softest matchups. What do you think about LDU as an option?
I think it'd be him for me. He's looked quite good. I only watched a bit of that game, but he looked good the week before as well. He's gone bang, bang after one sort of easing back game against Adelaide. So I would say him. I think he showed at the start of the year what he can do. So sort of was carrying something right until he eventually was injured and missed quite a bit. I know who you're bringing up as the last one, and it's definitely Josh Kelly, right?
Oh, it was not, but okay,
It was not.
Go off. Go off.
He's
Yeah.
5'38", JD.
Tell me about Josh
I
Kelly.
mean, obviously
Whoa.
the week before, disaster, right? That's got to be his lowest score since ever, right?
For
Without
forever.
an injury.
Yeah.
So obviously tagged.
Yeah, so that was
it.
he played wing and got hard tagged by Finn, who kept him to 6 touches, and then with Green out back into the midfield and was a match winner
Was it like
once
20
again.
contested this week? Like he was.
Yeah, Keys was. I
elite,
think Keys was following around for a lot of that, but like odd one not to man him up more closely because back to his best, and now obviously made himself cheap. So you could go there, but obviously if you're light on trades, maybe a little bit worried about the history for Kelly. The one I was actually going to raise up as the one that I probably like the most is Sarong at 567k. Now it's like 17, 18k more, so it kind of depends on what you've got in the bank, but the hesitancy with him was always carrying this ankle injury, what's going on there. But the week off, I think, is going to keep him in good stead for the run home. Freo's run's pretty nice as well. So I think that is one that you could look towards. And, when you said, like, that I thought there's someone else you're going to bring up, there's one other player that I thought
there's a few, actually.
You're going to mean. Parrish, I thought you were going to talk about at 590. You obviously had a down week.
I guess we should say below, like, we'll give LDU. We'll put him in there.
Yeah, probably
a K more and say who we like, and then above because not everyone can afford. I mean, there's Cripps there as well, but no one will probably go there. Although, didn't George go there?
Oh, geez, that sounds. He didn't tell me if he did, probably for good reasons.
I don't even know you went Caleb Daniel. That's how switched off I am in the minute. George, no, he didn't.
It was.
I think he was thinking about it.
Probably should have been Sheasel in the end.
No, he didn't. Thank God. Anyway, he's there as well at 518, and obviously West Coast this week. Maybe you go back there, but anyway. So below, like, would LDU be your number one?
I think so.
Below?
Yeah, if you could go pure mid, yep.
Yeah, I think it'd be mine too. Maybe Steele second. And then it all comes down to how risky you are. Jelly's there as well. Like Jelly could go bang for 6 weeks, but of course, if you're going down to one trade or something,
or zero when you don't have cover, then that's an issue.
And then above, I guess Sarong. What's Parrish? Did you say 30k more?
590. Actually, one I didn't cover on the injury list, but maybe a pause is Setterfield, I believe, is the test this week. So if he comes back in, does it affect Parrish? I don't know. Probably not, but that's like the only flag. But yeah, he's still got that West Coast run at
looks nice.
Like 5 of the last 6 are in Melbourne, I think, and then the only other ones
haven't been too hot. So it's not a bad run.
Yep. No, not at all.
Yeah, I mean, looking at 3-round average, it's quite even 5. Like Hugh McCluggage has been cooking a bit lately. Obviously, you wouldn't go there.
Yeah, no Dunkley. I mean, Will Ashcroft's like a 123 round average as well. So
yeah. That's probably LDU for me. And then if you could even if you could afford a bit above, maybe Sarong's a bit more safe than LDU, just because he hasn't. I mean, they've all had issues. These guys, they're in the 500s for a reason, right? They're not. If they were going well and had a bruise-free season, they wouldn't be here. But I think I say LDU. Cool.
Otherwise, other pod one I do like is Libba. So he's
600.
605k. Yeah. The 149 this week after a disappointing score against Collingwood, but they've got Essendon, GWS, Richmond, Hawks, West Coast, Cats on the run home. And I have a feeling Cats will be resting players in that last round if they can, if they've solidified their spot. So I like Libra as an option on that run home. Looks pretty nice.
Oh, yeah, the Dogs, yeah. They'll probably make finals. But I didn't see that. They'd probably be box seat to make finals looking at that. Yeah.
Part of the reason I went Daniel is just a very nice fixture, but not if he plays like he did on the weekend, I'll tell you what.
No. Cool. So that's the Tom Green situation. I guess the other one we wanted to speak about, or because I'm looking at most, just seeing what people are doing, and it's the second most popular trade player for player is Rowan to Gawn. Obviously off the back of just like we know what I've always said it. Maybe for 3 years, Max is the best ruckman I've ever seen. And I mean, I was young when Cox was running around. Yeah, but Max is just, I think he's different level. Oh, he had 30 touches, mate. Like, it was ridiculous what he was doing.
Yeah.
On was it Friday night? No, it was a Thursday. I can't remember. Anyway,
taking all Petrarca's points. Still,
that was obviously a story I was seeing. Obviously, I got tracking a couple of weeks ago, so look, I'd probably care more if I was doing better, but I was just, I was just happy
Don't
watching.
worry,
I
was
yeah,
butthurt
were you
enough
getting
for
butthurt
us.
for me? Cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's Rowan price? Like Max is 550 at the moment. Like, I mean, Grundy, if they want to make a run at final, I mean, they make finals, but if they want to make a run into finals, I don't think they bring him back. Like, just they look so much better with that setup. Having actual JVR and Ben Brown up forward instead of Grundy, because he's not really that. I think they keep it this way, and there you go. He's less than Rowan at the minute, so you make 10K out of it. Would you? I think I'll ask you. What I was going to say is, how many trades would you consider doing that with? Like, would you do it with? Like, you wouldn't do it with one. I think that we'd both agree on that. Would you do it with two?
No, I mean, I don't think I'd trade Marshall to Gawn, to be honest, at this point of the year. I think, like, if you're going to sideways, it's probably better sideways. For me, it's only if you're able to get off Briggs, and I think that's more the interesting one, because there are, as we said, kind of 20% that are Briggs Marshall, and Briggs is the one I'd be looking to jump off to Gawn. And so yeah,
50K, yeah.
And look, this isn't without risk. Obviously, it's not without risk, because Grundy could come back. They could try that experiment again before the year's out.
Max is older. He could get rested or
especially
injured because he's an older guy.
Yep. They got a softer fixture on the run home, and once top 4 is secured, it doesn't look like they'll compete for top 2. So could rest guys over the back end. So yeah, look, but I think if you had maybe 3 trades, I'd look at doing Briggs to Gawn this week. Anything less, I probably would just rather hold the injury trades.
Yeah. I mean, just the fact he can still do that with the number 1 ruck role first week back shows what he is. I mean, I'm spewing that he didn't get that forward DPP now, because I probably would have picked him up, at some point. Easy to say now, of course, but not to be. Any other big topics you want to talk about before? I mean, we'll keep it short and sweet this week. Talk about captains in a sec, but any other major topics?
No, I don't think there is. No.
I mean, rookies. We could say if someone had to bring in one this week, people looks like they're going Cooper Harvey, like you said. Maybe job security looks pretty good.
Security should be good. Otherwise, Paris for the Saints looked really good, but his like roles aren't great. Not that Harvey's is either, but yeah, he looked alright too. Otherwise, I'm not really sure there's anyone else worth.
No, I mean, Banks is on the bubble, but I don't know how.
Oh, Angwin was good. He's 161.
Oh yeah, I saw that in my fantasy team. What happened there? He actually played a good game.
Yeah, Wagner came back, but if Young's back, he'll be back out of that side, so I wouldn't bother looking at him. What Banks you mentioned, he's been all right as a defender option, which there's not too many of those going around. So,
Woden's the other one people are bringing in. He's gone 43 and 54. So,
and he looks good. He kicked a really nice goal in that game.
Looks like he's nailed a spot as a pressure forward there. So,
yeah, especially with Fritsch out. So,
yeah, it's a few options there. I don't think. I mean, maybe pick the one you think has the best job security from here on out, right? If you might be. You wouldn't want to rely on them, obviously, of course, but we've been having to rely on our bench quite a lot recently. So, out of that, maybe it is Cooper Harvey. I don't know, or maybe it's Paris who had the best job security. What would you say?
I'd say Harvey's got the best job security, just given the injuries at North. Yeah. And he's been good in his 2 games. Like, I think he's tried hard. His contested marking's been good for especially someone with his stature. So yeah, I like Harvey. He's a goer.
Cool. Cool. Captains, reluctantly, because I know that just everyone in this God Green Earth should have the VC on English again this week.
Yep.
On Friday night at Marvel, and Draper's not back, is he, JD?
Draper is confirmed to not be out. To not be in. He's confirmed to be out again with his hip. And so Phillips returns from suspension this week and could be straight back in for Brian. But Brian was probably one of the better Essendon players, despite him still being raw as a rookie ruck. So look, if Ryan's in, I think English just dominates Brian, because he's basically got a bigger frame than him.
See that.
Yeah, a bigger frame than Brian, but I think that'd be fine. If Phillips is back, maybe Phillips is a little bit more restrictive, but I think you'd still back English to run him ragged around the ground. I think the only thing it could be a red flag is if they play both rucks, and with Wiedemann playing poorly, I see it like as a reasonable possibility they drop Wiedemann, play both the rucks
Brian
this
and
week.
Phillips.
Yep.
Either way,
maybe they tag team him a bit, but I think VC English still fine. It's just if they tag team both of them, then maybe something like Bont comes into consideration a little bit more.
Yeah. I mean, I'd have it
because
as like almost 60-70% that English just goes 120 again because it's what he does. So on the off chance he doesn't, who would your backup be? I guess that's the only real question. And then I'll talk from a non-English owner's perspective.
Yeah. So I currently have the C on Dawson, but I can't remember if that was because it was a conscious choice or because
Yeah,
I just couldn't find anything else. I think it's partly like I just couldn't find anything better from the options that we're kind of looking at. Maybe if you had Sarong against the Swans, I'd be interested in that. But I think Pies and Port is a pretty tough matchup. I wouldn't really be confident picking a captain from that, despite how good Dacos has been. GWS Gold Coast, no one I really like there. Melbourne and Crows. I think Petrarca's had good games against them in the past, but I hate this role. And the fact that he kicked 4 goals for a 113 scares me. So it'd be Dawson or Laird from that game. Given Laird had the AC knock, I think Dawson then is probably where I lean. Saints North? Maybe you could look at Marshall against Cherry, but it's just hard to see him coming off a 58. There's not really a whole lot to look at this week in terms of captains, to be honest. So what do you see?
I mean, I would just lock in Nick. He's probably the most safe C in the game, right? Not like for VC, he doesn't go monster. I think he's had 1 or 2 140s, but I was just looking. He's only gone under 118 once since like round 9. He had those 2 games under 100, 80 and a 72. Yep. But then other than that, he's pretty much had a almost a takeable 115, 120 score for a captain every week, besides about 3. So as a backup C, maybe go him, but probably suspect you'd take English. So yeah, for me, I'd go Bont VC, obviously, without English against the Dons. Does he historically go well against you guys? I don't even really know. Do I care? But
okay, like 115,
you don't really have
123, 105.
So like,
yeah, no, we haven't had historically great matchups.
Yeah.
So maybe Perkins. Maybe Perkins goes to him because he kind of stood Dangerfield in a bit of a cooler role. Like that could be it. But I mean, if you're Bont, does that really strike fear in you? Probably not.
No. He's just been butchering a bit lately, holding him back from his bigger scores. Quite a few clangers and whatnot, but he's still doing everything else. I guess C's interesting. So Nick, like I said, I mean, you could go Timmy T against Hawthorn, although they're actually not too bad in the midfield at the moment.
Yeah.
Or this year altogether.
Doherty against West Coast.
Yeah, there's West Coast. Like I've got Walsh, but would I captain him? Probably not.
Probably not.
If Chera's out, maybe you could Hail Mary.
I think if Chera's out, he's much more interesting. But captain, I don't know about that.
No, I don't think I would do it. I mean, I don't really care too much at this stage of the season. I still wouldn't do it, so that probably says something. I don't mind the Crows. Melbourne are actually pretty, surprisingly not too bad for mids, right? They've been good over the last couple of years. So you could go a Laird or a Dawson there. Laird 150 last week, but he's obviously
Well, I mean, especially with Petrarca and Oliver in there, I just think that the Crows mids probably got one of the better matchups.
Yeah,
but I'm hoping
you're right.
Sorts it out for me.
Track playing in the forward line since I got him in. Lovely. Cool. That is that. Thanks for joining us for another week. Hopefully, George will be back next week. I'll be here. We'll do a 3-round matchup. What did I leave?
I pumped up my Mickey Mouse list, and you just gone straight past it. Sign off straight away. Oh my god, the top 5 Mickey Mouse moments.
Yeah, we have to do it now.
Obviously inspired by the week we just had of
pure
carnage of these random 1-week injuries and even them not being there. So look, that gets an honourable mention. It was the spark for the list, but not in my top 5. So coming in at 5th is going to be the Mills-Millard debacle, where these are 2 proven premiums that got cheap for us, traded in, and then Mills gets a 4 and is injured for a long period of time. Miller also gets injured. And, Mills not so much, but Miller very durable. So for these things to happen, super unlucky. Just, very unfortunate for owners that jumped on. At number 4, I've got rookies debuting as subs or playing games as subs. And in particular, 2 come to mind. Sheldrick and Dill Williams, where these are players who would have absolutely jumped on and carried us through the buys, would have been great cash gen for the back of the years, but no, they got ruined by sub debuts. Very Mickey of those coaches. Number 3, I think, will be a popular one, which is Sicily's second suspension. And it's not so much the ruling itself, but it's just from an owner's perspective, You jumped on Sicily. He got suspended for a week for a bump on Caminiti, then came back and then instantly got suspended again for 3 more weeks. So just for him to get 4 weeks of suspension in 5 weeks is just like so Mickey and like just really unfortunate for owners, especially at a point in the year where we're running out of trades. You can't trade in, can't trade out. And then, yeah, he returns and gives you a duck egg. So, yeah, at number 2, I'm putting in Oliver's hamstring, which is one of the most ludicrous situations. Not only is he was the most owned or one of the most owned players in the league, highest averaging basically at that point.
Missed one game in 5 years or whatever.
Correct. And picks up a hamstring that's quite minor, going to be back for King's birthday, then goes in a hospital, then an infection, then rumors, and then he's not then he's coming back, then he's not coming back. And, it's just been on and on. It is going to end up being one of the longest minor hamstrings we've ever seen. So that whole situation is very Mickey Mouse. And then number 1, I'm giving it to the LDU late out early on in the year, where not only was he a late out, I felt like 30 seconds before the match, but then Supercoach, the site went down, preventing owners from doing last-minute trade-outs. And that is the most Mickey of all of these, because it wasn't just that something happened outside of your control with the AFL or player injuries or whatever, but the actual game itself went down, preventing you from doing something about it. So that gets my number 1 most Mickey Mouse moment of the year. But please comment below on what you found to be super unlucky, super Mickey from the year ahead. I'm keen to hear the ones that we missed, and I'm sure there was many others. Honorable mentions could be like Wits laid out in round 3, Blair captain in round 1, 50 scores for no good reason. So there's just lots of these really unlucky moments that kind of outside what's reasonably predictable. And if you've got some, please let us know.
Yes. I don't think I had any outside of what you mentioned. We'll ask George next week as well, I'm sure. I mean, Laird, first captain round 1, I'm sure he would have said.
Yeah.
But other than that, it was a Miller-Mills combo in 2 out of 3 weeks. I think that happened in.
Yep.
Not too much, yeah. Clary, I mean, you had that first. To me, that's almost number 1. Just what happened there. I don't really get why or what's going on. I still don't, and I don't think we ever will, unless you're truly in the know. But the fact that he's out 3 weeks with just the whole ticking around for 2 or 3
it's like
weeks
it's restarted all over again. What is this?
Oh man, stuff like that's probably you'd be probably top 50 if you just got rid of him from the get go.
I might have
even
had
higher
Sicily all this time. Who knows?
True. So, probably got to Sicily and then copped anyway.
Who knows? So yeah, that is those 2 were a nice little 1-2 punch that a lot of people had to endure.
Yeah. I mean, I was thinking about going the other way, right? If Sicily got suspension, maybe I get Clary. He never came into the team.
Yeah, he never came in. Yeah. Actually, lots of people in the same boat. It's just crazy,
ridiculous. Yes. Okay. Cool. That's it. Yep. Comment below. We'll ask George off the top next week if we remember. I'm sure he's got a few to rage about as usual. So, yes. Thanks for joining us once again. We'll see you next week for the round 19 review, and we might go through top teams. I think JD next week. I'm not sure you guys did that last week, right? So
we didn't know.
Maybe look at the run home top 5. I think.
Yep.
Quick look.
Well, a couple of fantasy take TV boys sitting in 1 and 2. So keen to see how they go on the run home. Lots obviously around the mark as well.
Gazza looks in the box seat, right? People that look in a good position. Good trades, I think. Has Houston, has Ryan. Ridiculous, right? 2 guys that have scored numerous amount of points lately in defense and are quite low owned. So definitely in the box seat. We'll have a look closely next week at that. Till next time. Cheers.